The wind clawed at the hangar doors, screaming across the tarmac like it wanted to peel the skin off the earth. White swallowed everything beyond 20 yards. Visibility was a lie. The Black Hawk sat dead on the pad, its blades stiff with ice. Systems blinking in confused red. Pilots gathered inside the dispatch room, radios hissing with static. None moved, not even the captain. Someone had gone down. A recon team pinned in the range, coordinates lost. GPS frozen, comms intermittent. No air support was cleared. Nobody volunteered. Too cold, too fast, too late. Then she moved. A figure, small and wrapped in a grease-stained jacket, stepped out from the maintenance bay. No helmet, no gloves. Just a weather-sealed duffel and a pair of steady hands. She didn't speak. Didn't glance at the others. She crossed the hangar floor like a ghost walking toward its grave. A young airman blocked her path, boots wide. Voice, cracking something about orders. She didn't look at him. She didn't need to. He stepped back. She climbed the ice-caked steps into the cockpit. Inside, the silence broke. Switches clicked, panels blinked. One by one, the cold systems flickered awake like they remembered her. Engines grumbled, then caught. The rotors groaned against the wind, then turned. Not fast, not loud, but alive, like something ancient stirring in its sleep. The others stood frozen. No one called her name. No one gave her clearance. But the helicopter lifted anyway, rising steady through the curtain of snow. The wind tried to push her back. She leaned into it. She was gone. No one knew why the aircraft responded. No one asked. Not yet. But every man in that room would remember the sound. The way it rose. The moment the storm met its match. She arrived before the first coffee brewed in the officer's mess. Snow still fell when she keyed into the hangar. Her boots made no sound on the concrete. She hung her parka in the corner, zipped into coveralls already smeared with graphite and grease, and disappeared into the back of the bay. The UH-60 sat dormant, blades folded, sensors powered down. Clara Hale rolled the ladder under its nose. She climbed without a sound. Tools already holstered on her belt. The birds liked her hands. She worked quick and quiet, like someone who'd done this too many times to speak about it. She never talked much, didn't need to. The others did enough of that. They called her Wrench Girl, sometimes Ghost Rag, sometimes worse. None of it seemed to touch her. She gave small nods when spoken to, worked through lunch, never raised her voice. The younger ones joked she was some kind of failed pilot, some washout who now fixed the real deal for a paycheck. Once, a group of tech recruits dared each other to get her to talk. One asked if she even had a last name. She stared at the hydraulic manifold and said nothing. Her locker sat at the far end of the corridor. Behind the secondary parts rack, it had a small dent in the top right corner. She never locked it. Inside, spare gloves, old logbooks, a metal flashlight with cracked rubber, and a badge, round, dulled, its paint worn smooth. She never touched it. Just glanced once, on cold mornings, then shut the door. The crew chiefs didn't question her results. The aircraft she worked on stayed clean, aligned, prepped. No one ever signed off behind her. They didn't need to. She left tags, checklists, handwritten notes taped under access panels. Everything neat? Exact. You could measure her work with a caliper. Clara didn't wear makeup. Her hair stayed pulled back in the same tight loop, tucked under a black beanie in winter. She carried a green thermos she rarely drank from. Her boots were Air Force issue but old. The soles were cracked, patched in places with aircraft tape. She walked the perimeter of the hangar every night before lights out. Some said it was a habit from her past. Others thought she just liked the cold. She never explained. She never confirmed anything. There was no file on her with the active squadron. She was listed as civilian support, GS-9 maintenance clearance. No flight logs, no rank. Just a note transferred from another base. Voluntarily demoted to technician grade. Unusual, but not unheard of. When she spoke, it was clipped, measured, no filler. If someone asked for help, she gave it without comment. If they mocked her, she didn't flinch. Once, a lieutenant snapped a pair of gloves at her and called her obsolete. She looked at him, slow and flat, then turned away. That silence haunted him more than a shout ever could. Pilots came and went. Some nodded at her. Others didn't. She kept working, kept showing up. She didn't hang anything personal on the wall. No photos, no keepsakes, not even a nameplate. Just a single strip of duct tape across her locker with the word "Hail" written in block letters. On days when the wind hit right, she stood near the hangar door and watched the sky. Not long, just a few minutes. Then she turned and went back to her tools. She knew the shape of every panel on the Blackhawk. She knew the flex point of every skid, the temperature shift that triggered fuel line freeze. She could hear misalignment in blade pitch before diagnostics picked it up. She worked without gloves even in minus temperatures. Said she could feel the metal better that way. A few of the older non-coms said she reminded them of people they used to fly with, the ones who knew when to talk and when to move. One sergeant, Vietnam era, once muttered she had ghost eyes, the kind that stared through a problem and saw the crash behind it. But he never asked her story. She kept to herself in the evenings, ate alone in the maintenance mess, drank hot water with lemon, not coffee. She never used the lounge, never watched the newsfeed, never laughed at the base's inside jokes. On holidays, she signed up for overnight shifts no one else wanted. Worked through Christmas, New Year's, even Super Bowl Sunday. Said nothing about it. Once, someone tried to prank her. Moved her tool chest, hit her socket wrenches. She didn't complain. She just found a new set and went back to work. The ones who pulled it didn't do it twice. She didn't correct them when they called her wrench girl. Didn't stop the jokes, didn't care what they thought. But every night, she opened that locker, and the badge was still there. Still waiting? Fairbanks never thawed. Not really. The snow fell sideways 6 months out of the year. Wind curled under hangar doors and sank into steel, freezing metal until it groaned. The sun rose late and died early, casting long shadows across the tarmac. Silence wasn't quiet. It was deep, bone deep. The base sat alone, 20 miles outside town. Chain link and concrete, surrounded by pine that stood like watchmen. The buildings were squat and ugly, no banners, no flair, just necessity. Inside, the cold followed you, through the rec hall, into briefing rooms. Even the mess line, it lived in the walls. Pilots trained here because it was brutal. If they could handle Fairbanks, they could fly anywhere. That's what the instructors said. Most of the lieutenants were under 30. Fit, fast-talking, sharp-jawed, full of mottos and chest thump. They liked the edge, the grind, called themselves hard chargers. They flew training sorties in old TH-67s and Blackhawks. Some logged hours in the T-6 Texan II before transitioning out. Every morning, the flight line swarmed with crews checking checklists, flipping switches, marking fuel levels with red Sharpies. Inside, the buzz never stopped. Radios barked, sirens tested. Recruits marched out drills with winter gloves tucked under their armpits. It was a rhythm, blunt, unrelenting, loud. Clara Hale moved through it like she didn't hear it. She kept to the hangars. 2 blocks from command, 3 from the flight sim. Her workbench was near the secondary lift. Most didn't notice her unless she crossed the path to the lockers or fetched parts from supply. The Blackhawks sat under tarps when not in use. Old, reliable. Clara liked them. She treated them like they were still alive. Ran her hands under fuselage seams, listened for microfractures. She didn't need diagnostics. She knew the airframe's tone. She could tell if something was off just by touching it. The others didn't understand that. They calibrated. She connected. Sometimes, when no one was around, she'd stand on the tail ramp and just breathe, not long, just enough to feel the weight of the air. Then she'd climb down, wipe the skid edges, and disappear back into the tool shed. The base hierarchy didn't see her. She had no rank. No uniform beyond a standard civilian work coat with base patch stitched near the shoulder. Her ID badge clipped low, barely visible under her parka. Most airmen assumed she was long retired or part of some outdated program. No one asked where she came from. They just knew she wasn't part of them. In the evenings, the younger guys bragged in the rec room. Talked flight hours, weather maneuvering, sim failures. Clara passed by without looking. Boots steady, no limp, no swagger. She never interrupted, never corrected. The officers' wardroom ran by seniority. Young lieutenants tried to outtalk captains. Captains kept their distance unless someone bled. Clara wasn't in that chain. She didn't eat there, didn't drink at the bar. At night, she took her meals in the auxiliary break room near the parts cage. Every now and then, someone would glance through the window and see her. Alone, stirring soup, no TV, no phone. Just her and a ledger full of maintenance cycles. The younger airmen were loud in packs, that was part of it. Noise meant presence. Clara was the opposite. She carried herself like background, but the background always noticed more. She kept a logbook no one else used. Logged blade drift, rotor lag, downwash spread. She checked torque variance every 10 flight hours. Most skipped those steps. She didn't. In the cold, fingers stiffened fast. Clara worked barehanded when she could. Her movements stayed clean. Quick. Not showy, just effective. She reset systems with gloved knuckles. Checked amperage without second-guessing the scale. Once, during a simulated fuel leak, a recruit asked her how long a Black Hawk could stay airborne with one pump. Offline, she gave the exact number, then walked off. He never forgot it. The walls in the lower hangar were steel-plated. Moisture collected in seams, froze by dusk. Clara carried a scraper in her back pocket. Wiped them down without being asked. She didn't log that work. When the storms came in waves, the base grew tighter. Everyone moved faster. Checklist repetition turned frantic. Pilots swore into radios. Crew chiefs barked. Clara just kept moving, tools strapped tight to her hips. Hood low, eyes forward. She didn't operate like the others. She didn't react to praise or scorn. She worked. The others made noise. She made the birds fly. Here is the completed section for Part 4, Subpart 1, dismissed by rank. Approx. 600 words. The storm warning came in red. Sharp blocks of color crawling across the screen in dispatch. Temperatures dropping fast. Visibility tanking. Air pressure shifting hard enough to pop eardrums. Crews clustered in the hallway outside the command room. Pilots leaned over the console. Radios clicked, hissed. Logistics officers pulled papers and argued over evac routes, too fast. No time. Clara stood at the edge, half in shadow. Not invited, not addressed. She waited until the noise dipped. Just enough. Is there a contingency if the primary pilot drops out mid-flight? The words came flat, quiet, not a challenge, just air passing through cold lips. Heads turned. Lieutenant Parker didn't even look up right away. When he did, it was with half a smirk. Flying's for people who actually know how to fly. A few of the younger ones snorted. One muttered something about simulators. Another said grease girls didn't belong near avionics. Parker smiled like he'd scored a point. His eyes didn't hold hers. Just flicked past like she wasn't worth a second line of thought. Clara nodded. One motion. No visible change in her face. She turned without comment and walked back toward the maintenance bay. No one followed. No one called out. The hallway swallowed her like she'd never been there. In the room, conversation resumed, louder, looser. One recruit tossed a pen toward the whiteboard and missed. Another leaned back in a chair and mimicked her voice. She hadn't raised it. Not once. They laughed harder. Parker adjusted his collar. Said something about how stress makes people talk out of turn. Nobody questioned it. Back in the hangar. Clara set her tools in line. Checked her clipboard. Moved like a metronome. Blades, wiring, tail inspection. Under the steel table, the portable rescue kit sat zipped tight, untouched. But clean. Ready. Waiting. The locker creaked when it opened. Metal stiff with cold, the bulb above flickered once, then held steady. The hangar was quiet. Everyone else had gone. Clara pulled the flap of her duffel forward, unzipped the inner pouch. Her fingers brushed the edge of something solid. She drew it out. A round piece of metal, scuffed and dull, edges worn smooth. The enamel long faded, a small dent in one wing, the backplate slightly bent. She turned it in her hand once, just once. It didn't shine. It didn't catch the light. But her hand stayed still, holding it flat, like it weighed more than it should. She looked at it a while, eyes fixed. No blink. Then, almost absent-mindedly, she stepped toward the waste bin. Paused. Her wrist turned. The badge hovered over the rim. She stopped. Held her breath, then lowered her arm. Back into the pouch. Tucked deep. Fingers moved slow. precise, like sealing a wound. She closed the locker. No sound. No one saw. They launched at 0417. The call came in from a climber team off the Denali West Ridge. 2 lost, 3 clinging to ice at 10,000 feet, winds rising. Visibility collapsing, risk assessment flagged red. Clara went anyway. She flew Point and Rescue 91, a modified HH-60G Pavehawk. Her co-pilot, Monroe, handled the relay. The crew chief sat rear scanning terrain. The air thinned faster than forecast. Downwash scattered snow like shrapnel. Radar blinked false positives. Clara dropped low, read the ridge by eye. They found the survivors 26 minutes in, 2 conscious, 1 barely breathing. The wind shifted, sudden and hard. Microburst from the east flank. They had 30 seconds to hover. Less to extract. The winch jammed on the second pull. She ordered Monroe to prep the fallback. He hesitated. She took the stick fully, trimmed pitch manually, used cyclic adjustments to balance the wobble. The last survivor clipped in just as the gust came. The rotor dipped. Clara countered. They lifted, then veered right, nose yawing. Ice clogged the tail sensors. Hydraulics dropped. She killed the assist, flew manual. Tension coiled through the frame. Monroe didn't make it back. He'd slipped from the hoist arm after getting all 3 evacuees aboard. Wind took him. No scream. No time. Clara landed blind on an auxiliary pad near TOC, straight hand control. 1 engine in fallback mode. Instruments dead. Her wrists locked up from the strain. An hour later, back at base, she wrote the report herself. She didn't mention Monroe's scream, just his fall trajectory. Location logged to grid, body unrecovered. Command met the next morning. Internal memo circled by noon. Pilot deviation under adverse weather. Chain of command avoided press fallout. They needed a name. 1 name. Clara didn't argue. She wore her uniform to the hearing. Boots polished. Hair regulation. She saluted each officer in the panel. Listened. Answered 2 questions. Then signed the discharge form. They asked if she wanted to speak. She said no. She handed them her wings. Didn't flinch, didn't wait, walked out, turned her phone off. Packed a single duffel, bought a bus ticket. 3 stops later, she burned her flight logs. The next week, she applied for a federal technician position at Fairbanks. Civilian contract, mechanical support, no mention of prior flight certs. They didn't question it. She passed the tool test in half the time. Started work the following Monday. No welcome briefing, no introductions, no calls from the old unit. She didn't check in with anyone, not even the crew chief from that night. In the maintenance bay, she kept her head down. Asked for parts by code, not name, 8 standing up. On her 3rd week, she was assigned a damaged rotor hub. Out of alignment, 4 degrees. She fixed it in 12 minutes. Didn't log the time. That night, she walked the tarmac under floodlights. Watched the cold roll in over the trees, checked her hands, no tremor, no pain. Just cold. She nodded once, then went inside. The sky dropped without warning. Radar showed clear at 0600. By 0714 whiteout, wind clawed through the pine and smothered the valley. Temps plummeted. Wind chill cut below -40. Dispatch lit red. Communications stuttered. Visibility 0. A recon team was out past Eagle Summit. 4 personnel. 2 vehicles. Last transmission said something about traction loss, then silence. Command tried to raise them. No return. A scrambled frequency came through once. Fragmented voice. Then nothing. Pilots huddled near the ops board. No one volunteered. The Blackhawk listed for readiness sat iced over, rotors stuck. The snow kept coming. Horizontal now. Thick. Blinding. Parker paced the room, voice sharp but unstable. Called for diagnostics. Yelled for battery temps. No response. One of the crews had already tried to warm up the backup bird. System stalled at 10% load. They backed off. Clara stood behind the secondary rack. Silent. She tracked every number. Every map refresh. She saw the elevation of the pass drop into warning zones. Knew what that meant. Parker barked out for visual confirmation. A sergeant snapped back there was nothing to see. Another pilot leaned into a radio, knuckles white. A new message crackled through the system. Vehicle down. 3 injured. Flight system error. Pilot non-responsive. Cannot launch. The room froze. Parker turned to the nearest technician and demanded rotor spin-up. He was told no one was cleared. Clara didn't move, didn't blink. Outside, the snow swallowed the landing zone. Visibility dropped under 30 feet. The world went flat. No color, no edges. Parker shouted again, voice too high. His hands trembled. Nobody answered. The base fell still. Only the wind moved. And Clara, one step back. Then another. No one noticed her leave. The hangar bay was quiet, not still. Just waiting. Clara walked with purpose, no rush, no hesitation. One hand zipped her coat. The other clutched the rescue kit olive canvas, faded, packed tight. She passed the parts cage, cut across the rear maintenance path. Boots scuffing through frost. A young soldier moved to intercept. Half her age, mouth open, voice ready, you're not cleared. She didn't stop. Didn't speed up, just looked at him. I've flown worse than this. The tone wasn't loud, wasn't proud. It was a fact, delivered with the weight of repetition. He froze. She kept going. The backup. Black Hawk sat crouched behind a snow berm. Its rotors buried, panels frosted, systems dead cold. She climbed the intake ladder, hand over hand, slow, controlled. The snow stung her eyes, but she didn't blink. Inside, the cockpit was dark. No hum, no warmth, just the cold waiting. She sat, strapped in. Took a long breath, then reached battery switch first, then generator. Manual circuit reset, fuel line flow check, the system protested. She worked by instinct, no checklist, no call-outs, switches flipped, gauges flickered. Control panel light crawled across her gloves. Hydraulics whined, main rotor unlocked with a low groan. Ice chipped off blade edges, torque needles climbed, hesitated, stabilized. Outside, the wind screamed. Inside, Clara moved like time was split in pieces. Right hand over collective, left thumb on throttle. She didn't speak. The chopper lifted, slow and sure, nose straight, tail heavy. She held trim with gentle pedal taps. The wheels left earth. Wind hit from starboard. She rolled into it, let the bird drift, then corrected. Her shoulders didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed fixed on the white ahead. No GPS. No radar, just horizonless storm. She flew into it anyway. The hangar faded behind her. Figures watched from inside. No one spoke. The snow took her, and she didn't come back. Not yet. The sound came first. Not a roar, a grind, slow, relentless, then lift. The chopper cleared the ridge in a wide, level approach, gear down. Tail straight, snow wrapped around the fuselage in thick sheets. Inside the hangar, everyone turned. Parker stood frozen. The radio still in his hand. The base commander leaned forward. No one breathed. The Black Hawk touched down smooth. No bounce, no drag. Rotor wash punched the hangar doors. Wind drove into the boots of every man waiting. They didn't flinch. Couldn't. Crew rushed out, medics ready, litter team in position. The cabin door hissed open. Clara stepped out first, helmet off. Jacket zipped to the throat, face pale with cold, eyes clear. Behind her, 3 soldiers, one with a splint, one cradling his ribs. One silent eyes glassed from hypothermia. They stepped down in turns. She helped the last one walk, quiet hands, steady grip. The youngest of them looked up, lips cracked, voice thin. Her. She flew us back. No one moved. Clara stepped back once the medics took over. Didn't speak, didn't raise her head. A crew chief stared at her. That's the wrench girl. The one they laughed at. The one they forgot. Now she stood in the snow, blades slowing above her. The smell of fuel in the air, and no one said a word. The hangar fell quiet. Then the sirens cut. Boots echoed down the entry corridor. 2 aides. One colonel, and a man in a dark coat, shoulders squared, stride silent. General Boone. He didn't pause, didn't scan the room. He walked straight toward Clara. Every officer stood. The enlisted followed. Clara didn't move. Boone stopped a foot from her. Looked at her face. Saw the ice clinging to her hairline. Saw the frostbit knuckles, raw from bare contact with steel. He nodded. Just once, we never forgot. His voice didn't carry far. But it didn't need to. He turned to the room. She flew for me. Years ago. A ridge mission outside Denali. We lost a man. Saved 3. She brought that bird down on pure instinct. He looked back at Clara. Command took her wings after that. Not for error, but to avoid embarrassment. She didn't resist. She took the hit and walked away. Silence again. General Boone cleared his throat. You thought she was a technician. You were wrong. He faced Parker, whose eyes dropped. No defense, no sound. One of the privates whispered it under his breath. She's Ghost Bird. The name passed between mouths. A legend. A name in briefing slides. A cautionary tale with no face. Until now, Clara shifted her weight. One step back. General Boone raised a hand. Not yet. The commander nodded once, motioned the staff forward. They surrounded her. Not to hold her, to witness her. Applause didn't come right away. It wasn't loud. It was steady, slow, earned. She didn't smile, but she stayed. Just this time. Outside, the snow began to thin, and in every barracks room that night, the story passed about the mechanic, the one who flew, the one they didn't see, until she flew into the storm, and didn't miss